When we close read with text, we read the text several times to find deeper meaning and to understand what it's telling us. Well, you know, we can do that with art too. I understand that your next unit is all about Native American legends. Well, I thought we would try some close reading, but with art. Let's go. Let's take a look at this first picture of this Native American and his horse. We're going to close read this picture, but I want you to watch how I do it first before I let you do one. When we close read a picture, we usually look at it very closely 3 times, each time for a different purpose. The first time I look at a picture, it's to just see exactly what is in the picture. The second time I close read or look at a picture, I look to see what feelings it gives me. And the third time I look at a picture, I try to ask myself, what story is it telling? So let's try our first close read with this picture. So come close with me. And what do I see? Well, when I look at this picture, I first see a Native American. And I notice he's sitting on a white horse. I notice that he has some weapons. Some of them being a spear. I notice a knife right on his waist. And I believe those are arrows next to him. Now, I'm not quite sure I see a bow, but I do think I see the arrows. What else do I see? I see a skull near the horse's legs. I see that he is on a prairie or flatland of some kind. And I see that it is, I'm going to say it's sunset, where the sun is setting. Or it could be that it's going to storm, because the clouds look kind of gray. I also see that there are feathers. Hang on. I also see that he has a feather in his hair, and that there are feathers at each end of his spear. Now that is the end of our first read, our first come close to the picture and see what we see. Notice, I only told you what I saw in the picture, nothing else. Okay, now we're ready for our second read. So I'm going to need you to come closer with me again, and this time let's look at the painting to see what feelings do I see in the picture. Well, the first thing I want to look at is the Native American himself. Look at his head. Look at the way it is bowed down over his horse. Now, I know from my background knowledge, when I bow my head down, I am either very tired or very sad. Also, take a look at the horse's head. Look how low to the ground his head is. Now, I'm not sure what feeling a horse can have, but I can tell you that that looks to me like he is very tired. At the same time, look at the horse's eye. His eye is almost entirely shut, as if he is exhausted. Another thing I noticed in this picture was, look at the Indian's hand on the shoulder of his horse. It gives me the idea that they are old friends and have traveled far together, and he's giving some kind of comfort to his horse. Now I want to go outside the characters, the horse and the Native American, and look around him. Look where he is. He is on the prairie. I don't see another person around. I don't see another house around. It is huge. Very open is the word I want. And that gives me a feeling of loneliness. So the evidence overall is that this Native American is very tired, very lonely, and very sad. Now we're ready for our third close reading. So come closer still, and let's figure out, what story does this picture tell me? We're going to use the evidence from our first two readings to help us create the story for this picture. And we're also going to use a strategy you know well, something called somebody wanted but so. Now, for the somebody, I am going to put that the somebody in this picture is a warrior and his horse. And that's all I need for the somebody. Let's go to the wanted. Now, I'm going to have to use my evidence from the first two readings to help me out with this. And because I noticed he had weapons and that he is a warrior, I'm going to say wanted to go home after a battle. I think I have evidence to support that. Now, in every good story, there's always a but. That means there's some obstacle in the way. There's something he has to get around. So in this one, based on the evidence in that picture, in that the ribs of the horse shows that he's hungry and the skull there, I'm going to say, but the way was long and dangerous. I think I have evidence to support that. But we have to have a conclusion to it. We have to end our story. But we don't know exactly what's going to happen to this Indian on his travels. So about the best I can say for so is, so he stopped to rest at the top of a hill. I have evidence to support that conclusion. Now I have my outline of what I think this picture is telling me. And I used somebody wanted but so. But I'm not finished yet, because we have to take that and write our summary paragraph. In our summary paragraph, we have to use everything we know about writing. And one of the first things we need to do is to indent. That means to move in a few spaces before we type our first word. And what will our first word be? Well, go back to our somebody wanted but so. Our first words will be a warrior and his horse. wanted to go home after a battle. And I'm going to stop there and put a period and start a new sentence. But the way was long and dangerous. So he stopped to rest at the top of a hill. Now, this is what it looks like. Listen to me as I read the summary paragraph. A warrior and his horse wanted to go home after a battle, but the way was long and dangerous, so he stopped to rest at the top of a hill. Now you've seen me go through the 3 steps of close reading: come close, come closer, and come closer still, and then write a summary of what I think the meaning of the picture is. So the next step would be for us to do one together. So here is our next picture that we're going to do together. Take a few seconds to look at it carefully. Our first step, remember, is to come close. And let's look to see, what do we see in the picture? I want you to list at least 5 things you see in this picture. Okay, now let's look to see what you found in this picture. Did you see people in this picture? Now, if you said Native Americans, that's fine. If you said a mom or dad and children, that's fine. Any of those are correct. But I just wanted to see if you saw people. The next thing I noticed, did you notice that there were teepees? There's several of them. Another thing I noticed was the big moon at the top of the picture. And did you notice the set of lights that are circling around the moon? If you put lights, that's fine. If you put clouds, that's fine. I hope you did notice them. Those are the northern lights. Another thing I noticed in the picture were all the stars up in the sky. I noticed that there are trees in the background. And I am going to say that that is snow covering the ground. All that white is snow covering the ground. And the last thing I noticed in the teepees, I think that in each teepee there is a fire going to keep them warm. Okay, that's all the things I saw. How many of those did you see? Now we're ready for our second reading. And for this one, I need you to come closer. And we are going to determine what feelings do I see in the picture. All right, you've had time to look over this picture and to maybe get an idea of some things in the picture that helped you understand what feelings you see in the picture. Well, here's what I saw. See if you saw some of the same things. First of all, I looked at the adults inside the big tent in the front. And if I look closely at them, I'm pretty sure that they are smiling down at their children. That makes me look at their children. So the next thing I look at are the children, and I notice that they are smiling at the adults. That gives me the idea that they must be a family, and they must be a pretty happy family. That's the feeling I get. I also noticed inside the tent that there must be a warm fire going, because you can see the light inside the tent and how it's glowing through that big tent. And you can see that in the other tents as well. And you know, fire always gives you a good feeling of warmth and coziness. So I get that feeling from the fire on there. Now looking outside the tent, I notice the artist has used a lot of deep blues for the sky, and for it kind of shades over the land a little bit. And blue usually means depressing or sad. Well, I get a feeling more of great loneliness, because noticed on the snowy fields you don't see another person or animal or teepee or house anywhere. So I get the idea outside the tent it's very cold and it might be very lonely out there. So what do I get from this picture? Well, I get the idea that although it may be very cold and lonely outside, it's pretty warm and happy inside those tents. So together we have come close and looked at this picture. We've come closer to see what this picture makes us feel, or feelings we see in the picture. And now we're ready to come closer still to see what story does this tell us. Now on this section, we're going to have you follow your teacher's instructions on using the somebody wanted but so strategy to write a summary paragraph.